This meeting of the Preservation Board is now in order. I will call a roll. Commissioner Richardson, are you here?
Here.
Commissioner Vizentainer, are you here?
Here.
Commissioner Wright, are you here?
Here.
Have I missed a commissioner? I have not. We have 4 to start. That's fine. Has any commissioner read the minutes of the last meeting?
I have.
I haven't changed the March 27th, or I would request an addition to it.
Okay.
On item A, 6211 Delmar Boulevard, if the minutes could also state, under the board decision, that Commissioner Richardson did not vote and did not participate in the questioning of the persons testifying or the discussion after testimony was completed.
So that was a motion to amend the minutes?
It was.
Okay.
And
Is there a second? Is there a second to that?
Second.
I have another
Let's-
proposal for the same one. I'd like to, page 11, where George Stock, the engineer, is testifying, I'd like the minutes to reflect that I asked him if McKay, at the location that Pulte was proposing to open LaSalle into it, was capable of handling two-way traffic along with parking on both sides, and he indicated that it was not.
Which minutes are you referring
That's
to?
the March 27th,
Okay.
Okay.
page 11.
Does everybody else remember it that way? Does anyone not remember it that way? Commissioner Richardson, could you amend your motion to reflect both changes?
Yeah, I amend my motion to make the change to item A as I stated, and the item to item G as Commissioner Vizentainer stated.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Do I hear a motion to adopt the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are our minutes. Commissioners, look at the agenda. Anybody need any changes? Okay, do I hear a motion to adopt this as our agenda?
So move.
Second.
Discussion? None? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, this is our agenda. Calling agenda item A, 4301 Maryland.
Bob Bettis with staff, and I'll tell the truth. We have a prelim for a new construction for a 3-story, 10-unit condo building at the corner of Maryland and Boyle. This is the site in question. It's a cul-de-sac right at the start of Maryland. Used to have a 3-story building that attached to this. Why don't you do it? Of course, it dies right when you want it to die. Awesome. Anyway, so anyway, there was a historic building there, and it's been gone for a few decades now. So okay. So this is the site in question, just to the right of the existing building. The site plan. The parcel's always been shaped kind of funny like that, actually. We have a Sanborn map later showing that the parcel itself's always been kind of truncated like that. And this is the Maryland elevation. So it's a 3-story building. First floor will be a garage space, not below grade, but it's at grade, and then 2 stories of units. Boyle elevation. This will face a row of commercial buildings, mixed-use buildings across Boyle. This is the north elevation, which actually might need to be tweaked a little bit. I believe the site plan calls for additions on the right side of it, so this may not be the actual final elevation, but this is close to what will be built. Well, being proposed to be built. And this is the east elevation. It faces the adjacent property. It's not really street visible from anywhere. This is the west elevation, I apologize. West elevation, facing the buildings to the next, to the west. So here's the site plan. As you can see, it kind of follows the truncated parcel. You'll enter into the garage off the alley side to the north. This is the proposed streetscape. Since the first floor is being used for parking, it's not as high up as the adjacent property. There's something to walk up into. So entrance is at grade, so it doesn't really line up with the fenestration patterns of the house to the next to it. This shows you the Boyle streetscape. It's a little bit taller than the house on the south side of Maryland. Doesn't really line up with fenestration patterns either, but again, that's kind of due to the first floor use as a parking garage. It just shows you the parcel. Again, it's kind of an odd little shaped parcel with the cul-de-sac. So it's kind of hard to kind of shoehorn this guy on the lot, but doing that. Some streetscape shots, just looking southeast and south along Boyle. A lot of trees out there. So the main house is going to go right there on the left-hand side with all the trees. Here's some context along Maryland. several kinds of buildings and styles of buildings as well. You have actually the second building from the left enters in at ground level, but fenestration pattern lines up with the neighboring properties. So there's varying degrees of setbacks along the block too as well. The two at the very eastern end though are right at the sidewalk, so this is going to be set back from that. So really the whole block does have kind of not really a certain kind of pattern. This is across the street. Majority of the buildings right at the sidewalk. And this is the historic Sanborn. It shows what was there before. So again, the parcel's always been kind of truncated like that. So yeah, it's kind of a neat little building that was there. So we've met with the developers and the neighborhood several times about this project, and it's kind of evolved over time. The main sticking point has kind of always been that the parking issue, they can't go below grade for cost issues. So that's really the whole issue in terms of why we have that street wall on Boyle will be, mostly brick and the grills that allow ventilation for the garage. So that's been kind of the driving force for the design, because there's that site constraint issue of how they're going to put the parking. But we've had several meetings with both the owner and the neighborhood. We think they've been productive. Let me go back to the elevations and show you. We'll see if that went up. But we had several iterations of the design, and there will be more changes coming. Jim Dwyer from Central West End is here. He's going to outline a few requests that the neighborhood has. So we'll get to that at the end when Jim speaks. But going through the ordinance itself, talks about height, scale, and mass. We say that it partly complies. Again, the street has kind of a varying heights of buildings along the street. So the height probably does align with the majority of the block, just not the ones right next to it. So the scale would be kind of off visually because of what's next to it. Location, again, it does comply, and it's kind of odd again because the cul-de-sac kind of pushes things back a little bit. But the rest of the block, you do have varying setbacks along Maryland. And along the Boyle side, it should align with the property to the south. The side of the corner property at Maryland and Boyle. Materials complies, mostly brick. There is going to be some discussion of some some trim detailing inside the porches along Boyle, but that's being worked out with the owner as well, so that shouldn't be a problem. Fenestration patterns, again, they don't really line up with the neighboring properties because of the issue with the garage. Decks aren't applicable. Curb cuts apply. They comply because, again, you're coming off the alley. So, again, we've had many meetings with the owners and the neighborhood, and we feel we're at a good spot to come to you guys and ask for preliminary approval with our usual requests for detailed and minor designs details.
Aaron, some questions? Questions down this end? Great, thank you. Okay, let's hear from the applicant first, please. You have questions for the applicant, commissioners? Okay. James Dwyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I assured the chairman in an ex parte conversation in the elevator on the way up here that I would be brief. I came here prepared to present a lengthy
You
explanation.
also said you look like Bill Clinton.
Yes, he did tell me that. In any event, whatever he may think about that, I came here prepared to deliver a lengthy explanation of the rationale supporting the position of the Planning and Development Committee, and I am pleased to be able to say that that won't be necessary. And the background for that is that, as Bob suggested, this has been a rather protracted exercise. The first correspondence started on September 15th of last year, so it's been 8 months that we have been dealing with this project. I think everyone involved, the applicant, Cultural Resources, and certainly me, will be relieved to get this behind us, and I think we're at a point where we can accomplish that. The most recent history, there were 8 iterations of design, and the most recent of those was presented to the Planning and Development Committee Saturday morning, a couple of days ago. Following that, there was extensive discussion among people on the committee about refinements that we thought would be helpful, and in some cases we thought necessary. And I want to say that the spirit of this has to do with context more than anything else. This flows from the notion that any new construction introduced into an existing contextual situation ought to reflect that context in some way, or in hopefully many ways. And so, following the meeting, we developed a list of 8 concerns and recommendations, which earlier today I communicated to Mr. Mathis. I am delighted to say that he embraced all 8 of our recommendations and agreed to incorporate those. Not all of those are readily able to be documented. A couple of them will require a little research and subsequent submittal of information. But we have agreed in principle on these 8 points. I have communicated that to Jan Cameron and explained to her what I was going to present today. And as far as I know, Cultural Resources is supportive of what I'm going to recommend. So we believe that we are all in agreement on the following recommendation. That is that you defer action on this appeal with the understanding that Cultural Resources will have the authority to sign off on the proposed project, meaning that the applicant won't have to come back to the Preservation Board and be delayed further. That you sign off giving authority to the Cultural Resources Office to sign off on the proposed project upon receipt of a favorable recommendation from the Planning and Development Committee, which will follow immediately upon receipt of revised plans from the applicant reflecting the revisions proposed today. And then, of course, the assumption or the presumption is that Cultural Resources would continue, as is traditionally the case, to have the authority to review and approve material selections, brick and mortar joints and things of that sort. So the question I have is, would you prefer that I do or do not recite the 8 points? They have been communicated in writing to both the applicant and to Cultural Resources.
I think we'll have our staff go over them for us, but I will tell you, I do not believe that our motion will reflect your request to delegate city authority to you all.
I'm not asking you to do that.
Okay.
I'm asking you to defer action and allow Cultural Resources to react however they see fit to additional recommendations that are not capable of being presented today, additional recommendations from us. The expectation is that Cultural Resources will embrace them. They've already seen them and agreed to them, as has the applicant. I'm not asking you to give us their authority. I'm asking you to arrange for a delay in the decision-making to allow for additional information to be submitted to Cultural Resources.
Well, here's what I will do. I will ask the staff to go through those things, but this is just a preliminary review. And what our role is in a preliminary review is to tell the staff what we think about them. And I think we'll probably proceed in that direction today.
Well, in that context, would it be appropriate for me to recite the 8 points? They are brief.
Well, since you represented that staff has them and agrees to them, I'd rather hear from them.
Okay.
Fine with me.
But stay right there in case he gets it wrong.
All right, will you do me a favor and put up the Boyle elevation just
Sure.
so that I can illustrate, if necessary, what our points are? Thank
Sure.
you.
You all set?
Yes, sir.
Number 1 is to eliminate the shed roof at the entry on Maryland Avenue, replace with a flat roof with brick expression visible from the street. So
That-
essentially,
That is shown lower left in this elevation that we're
If-
looking
By
at.
the way, if something comes up that you all have not agreed to or disagree with, shake your heads like that, okay? We're gonna make this work.
okay, so you got that first one. The second one is to fabricate all metal elements, window grills at garage, balcony railings using substantial artificial quality, cast iron versus aluminum as proposed. So yeah, the metal elements along the Boyle side will be fabricated versus stock equipment. 3 is to simplify the roof line with continuous brick parapet wall, eliminate the shed roof elements over the balconies. So get rid of these guys.
Wait, show that again, please.
These over here.
Got it.
Increase the depth of the balcony bays by 12 inches or so to further emphasize setbacks and rhythm of the east elevation. So these will be set back further, just kind of give some
Oh,
depth.
actually, they'll project.
Sorry, they'll
Our
project
suggestion
out a
is
little bit to give
project
it-
an additional foot.
But they still have a roof at all?
Yeah, they'll have a flat roof.
The parapet goes around?
It's just the concept is that band, that architectural band that you see left and right of those shed roofs will be continuous across the
Yeah, a
top.
little bit more.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 5 is use flat panels rather than lapped siding materials on all elevations, including the interior walls of the balcony. So again, these recessed balcony portions will be panels versus siding. Number 6, add windows on the west elevation as discussed and agreed, resubmit for review and approval. So the west side, the other side, will have more windows on it. So you can't really see it from the street, but that will have more windows on it. Number 7 is to provide specifications for lighting at the garage level, including Kelvin temperature, to manage visual impact from viewed from the exterior. So garage lighting on the north side, because you can turn off the alley, so that's fine with us. Number 8 is to provide a detailed landscape plan for the east, south, and west elevations. That's good to us.
Was that a fair summary?
It is.
You agree to those?
Yeah, that's fine.
Commissioners, questions?
Didn't they agree to them?
Yes.
Did.
And so, well, I have a question. So, Mr. Dwyer wanted it so that his development committee still signs off. If we vote on this with these 8 conditions that give you the green light, you're not waiting for him necessarily.
There you go.
No, we're going to wait for them to see the final revised design again and make sure that they're okay with it. And if they're okay with it, we're going to clear it as well. That's pretty much what it comes down to. If they're going to see the revised plans with the 8 stipulations attached, and if they're okay with it, then we'll
No, what if he's not okay with it?
then we'll have a discussion with the developer as well. We'll see the revised plans at the same time they will. So,
That goes back to the chairman's comment.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not going to advocate or give my authority to Mr. Dwyer, although I love Mr. Dwyer. But
Yeah.
I was gonna say, so again, if we vote on this, again, I think, would that not give you enough direction as to if they came in for a permit that?
this has been a long collaborative effort. This has been really a team effort on this one. So I think what they're asking for isn't really that unfair. And honestly, we've been working with these guys for a long time on this specific project, trying to get something built on this parcel. It's kind of rough. So I have no problem with it. Do you, this?
Well, the final authority to sign off on this permit is your input based on what we see. And we always want to take into account the concerns of community folks. But at the end of the day, the authority to approve a permit rests solely with Cultural Resources staff and the Preservation Board. And so, as was said, we will evaluate whatever designs we get versus whatever guidance you all give us. When the plans meet the needed specifications of your general guidance, we will sign off on them. And I'd like to think that we can do this in a way, getting input, in an informal way from the neighborhood that everyone will be comfortable with design. But at the end of the day, the authority to do that lies with the staff and the building commissioner and the preservation board.
issue with making the recommendation that they've written? I mean, it seems as though that recommendation would still work.
Yeah. This is a standard recommendation.
Subject to review.
But it would work. Aaron's right, it would essentially work the same way.
Yeah. Anybody else need to speak? You in favor or opposed?
It's complicated.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Imran Hanafi. I'm here often. This is a bit close to home because I live on Maryland, a couple blocks away. There are many things that are right with this project, as people have talked about, the brick exterior, the alley entry, the density. I serve in the special business district in this area, and I worry about pedestrian safety, because an area which is safe for pedestrians is safe for everybody. Last year, we spent about $100,000 putting in pedestrian lighting along Boyle. And it was a dark stretch. We wanted people who walk through with their strollers and all, joggers, to feel like, you know, they're in a place that's well lit, it's protected. So we put that investment for a reason, and I think having more people living there is a good idea. However, this ground floor, and I know you guys have been at this for months, but the ground floor treatment, I wish it could be a little bit more human. I mean, I don't know how many of you like walking next to a garage, and have you experienced it? Does it give you a feeling of safety, or does it give you a feeling that if you got mugged, no one will be looking out for you? So it's this concept of defensible space and creating an environment that conveys that to a stranger walking through. And if we have to have a garage on the first floor, I guess things that could help improve pedestrian safety would be to have a secondary pedestrian entrance on Boyle, so people are going in and out, activating the sidewalk. You could have some of the windows be lowered down, so you're not like blocked out as you walk by. You know, I don't know whether these start at your chin or your mouth and go up. There could be a bench here and there, landscaping, I don't know, some lighting. This seems like the first floor is just turning its back on Boyle. And that's what is unfortunate. I mean, this is an area which is facing evolving business district, and there are people who coming out of restaurants. I mean, it'd be nice if you had an area which conveyed that humanity, you know. And that's what I would say, that, you know, the little things that you can still do on the first floor to make it more human scaled and maybe give a more sense of safety.
You're right. That was complicated, but it was very useful.
Thank you.
Commissioners, questions?
Mr. Chairman, may I follow up?
Sure.
Hey, Tim, how are you?
All right, I didn't know I was going to see you here. So, we didn't read the 8 points, but we were concerned with exactly the same sort of concerns expressed by Imran just now about, particularly, that's why I wanted this elevation up, the fact that the first level of this proposed building is parking. It presents challenges. How do you connect to the street? How does it feel to pedestrians? How does it look from across the street when you're at the West End Grill and Pub? So one of our recommendations, two of our recommendations address that specifically, and a third sort of indirectly, increasing the depth of the balconies or bays to further emphasize setback rhythm on the east elevation, we think will enhance just the architecture of the building and the feel of the building. Provide specifications for lighting at the garage level, including the Kelvin temperature, to manage visual impact when viewed from the exterior. So the idea is that you wouldn't be suffering from 5,000 K 300-watt light coming out of these grills on the street level. Theoretically, if this works as it's supposed to, the quality of light emanating from the garage space will be appealing, and if we do it right, it could also be engineered to add some light to the sidewalk. And then the third point that is relevant is our request for a landscaping plan, which doesn't exist yet, so we can't evaluate it, but that too would address Mr. Hanafi's concerns about how the building feels from the street.
So a ninth point in which someone would always be out on the balcony,
Yes?
that'd just be it, to say,
Well, we can mandate that, and we can see what happens. You know? Yes,
apparently, yes.
I told you there was frustration.
Okay, Commissioners, that concludes the testimony that we have heard. You have questions for anybody involved before we have a motion? Okay, Commissioner Richardson, a motion, please.
I move that the Preservation Board grant preliminary approval of the proposal with the 8 additional changes that were read into the record by staff, subject to review of final documents, design details, materials by the CRO.
Second? Okay, there's 2 seconds. Commissioners, there's a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye. Abstain. Oppose.
I'm going to do a roll call. The Commissioner Wright, do you vote yes or no? Commissioner Vicentino, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Colleen, do you vote yes or no?
Abstain.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson?
No,
Okay.
no.
That would be 3 yeses, an abstention, and a no. The motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Commissioners, let's do agenda item B, which is, stand by, 1817 South 10th Street.
I'm Jan Cameron from the Cultural Resources Office. This is a preliminary review application
No, it's not.
concerning the
I'm sorry, 1 second. We'll take a 2-minute break.
Okay, Jan Cameron from the Cultural Resources Office. This is a preliminary review application, and it's a rather unusual one. This is for 3 structures to be constructed in the Frenchtown Dog Park in the Soulard Historic District. Is there a way to make that stop doing that? And what you see outlined on your screen is the current extent of the dog park. So you see it's a combination of 2 triangular parcels. And this is what it looks like from Emmett Street. The majority of the section on the left fronts on an alley. So really the only street view is from the end of Emmett, and that's what we're looking at right now. What you see there is a proposed future parking area, which is not being considered tonight. Now we're looking north along the alley from Emmett, turning looking south. This is the context at Emmett. This is the site plan showing the location of the proposed structures, which will be 2 gazebos, prefabricated metal gazebos, and a smaller wood storage shed. The gazebo that will probably be street visible, but it is an extremely wooded lot, is located here on South 10th Street. And this is the, if you can see, it would be the, I don't know if you can see where the, unfortunately I don't have a pointer, but if you can see where I've outlined the pavilions, it would be the one to the right. Okay. And that would be off of South 10th Street, which is here. Context at this location is this. Okay. So the issue is that the Soulard standards do address yard structures, such as gazebos and storage sheds, and they need to be based on a model example. Both of these designs are prefabricated, so they do not comply with a model example, and they really can't. So the staff is, here, I should mention this, excuse me. You can see the locations of all three structures are on exactly the boundary with the interstate highway. So they are not going to be highly street visible. So the staff feels that, in consideration of that, if they are dark and if appropriate landscape screening where it's necessary is installed, that we would support a variance to the standards as written. And I would like to also enter into the record a letter from the alderman of the 7th Ward, who says he fully supports the request of the Frenchtown Dog Park with the conditions recommended by the Crow staff and also by the Soulard Restoration Group. Now, I have not formally heard anything from the Soulard Restoration Group. I've had a conversation with the head of their design committee who felt also that if the structures were dark, it would not be an issue. But I don't have any formal recommendation from them.
I received the letter.
Oh, great, okay. So, questions?
Forward it to you.
You don't have it printed out?
No, I just got it.
Okay.
I can show it to you.
Well, maybe you could show it to the
Okay.
board. Questions?
Questions? We have 2 people signed up to speak. It looks like the Frenchtown Dog Park Association and someone else.
Only if you had any questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for the dogs?
No.
Commissioner Bissontainer, a motion?
Yes, I move the board grant preliminary approval for the installation of 2 pavilions and a storage shed with the stipulations that all materials be dark in color, the shed be screened from the street views with appropriate landscaping, and final drawings, materials, and colors will be reviewed and approved by the Cultural Resources Office.
Is there a second?
Second.
One of you seconded that? Commissioner Richardson did. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Under the Robinson rule, I'm going to call a roll. Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Bissontainer, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, that's 5 yeses. The motion is approved. Commissioners, looking around, I notice that Commissioner Robinson and Commissioner Killeen have entered and
Finally.
added them to the roll. We will now reconvene to hear appeals of denials, the first of which is 1930 Virginia Avenue.
Right. I'm Andrea Gagan with the Cultural Resources Office, and I swear to tell the truth. This is 1930 Virginia Avenue. And I want to submit into the record Ordinance 57702, the Compton Hill Historic District Ordinance, 64689, the Avonling Ordinance, and the PowerPoint and agenda.
Is your testimony the truth?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The applicant originally brought in a proposal that was denied due to the fact that it didn't really meet the historic district standards, especially in regard to scale, proportion, and architectural detail. And we also had requested a couple extra drawings from them. After it was denied and they appealed, we met with the applicant, and the resulting design comes much closer to complying with the historic district standards, and the additional drawings have been submitted. This is the lot at 1930 Virginia. And I believe it's kind of hard to see. We looked at Sanborn's. That originally was a 2-story building here at some point. It has been gone for quite some time. This is the site plan and the proposed front elevation. We do need to work out the details about the doors, but this is the proposed. And it is considerably different than what was originally proposed for the site. As you can see, the setbacks are on that street vary somewhat, so it's kind of in between some of the buildings. This is the proposed streetscape. We worked with the applicant on bringing the floor heights in line with each other, and lowering the parapet so that it was more in line with the eaves of the neighboring house. This is the proposed side elevation. They extended the brick back 10 feet on either side, and wrapped the cornice around slightly. And they, instead of the original proposed vinyl siding, they are now proposing to use cement board siding that's painted the same color as the brick. Cement board siding looks much more like lap siding, just historic lap siding. This is the house to the north of the proposed lot, or proposed building, and to the south. As you can see, they're very different buildings. These are some buildings across Virginia, and looking north and south from the site. There are a variety of heights and styles on Virginia. The building complies mostly with the historic district standards. The cement board siding, because on the one side it will be somewhat visible because of the height of the one-story building. That's the only real issue on that. We have worked out some other details. Originally, they had a concrete foundation. Now the front will be, the brick comes down almost to the bottom, and they'll have a precast sill at the bottom instead. Like I said, the details need to be worked out on the doors, but for the most part, the new proposal meets the historic district standards. Is compatible height, scale, and exterior materials with other single-family buildings on Virginia. Based on the preliminary findings, the Cultural Resource Office recommends that the Preservation Board overturn the director's denial of the project with the stipulation that final plans and exterior materials for the new building will be reviewed and approved by the Cultural Resources Office. Any questions?
I've had to design additions in this neighborhood before, and I've been held to the standards. Why are we not holding them to the standards? Why do they get cement board on the sides and the rear? I've had to put brick all the way around on additions. Because this doesn't say anything about non-visible sides or whatever. It says location, let me see. Materials for new and rehabilitated structures shall be compatible in type, texture, and color with the original building material. The building is new, compatible in type, texture, and color, predominant original building materials used in the neighborhood. There's no cement board originally in this neighborhood. This should be a full masonry building. Also, do they have to have a model example for this neighborhood? So can we get them to follow a model example if they're going to do one? Because this design, it has components of some of the buildings around there, but the windows are sort of not lined up properly and in the way I'd be used to seeing a two-family in.
Unfortunately, the current standards, the neighborhood is in the process of getting new historic district standards. Under the current standards, they're fairly vague, so there's not a lot of basically it's floor heights and proportions.
But I'd almost put this to the director. This is two buildings in a row from this district. We had the large apartment building last month where we just pretty much ignored the standards from this district. Is that because nobody's here to represent the neighborhood, or why are we not enforcing their standards?
Dan, since this is an appeal of a denial, I'll need you at the microphone and sworn in, please. For the record, who are you?
I'm Dan Krasnoff, the Director of Cultural Resources, and I swear to tell the truth. So to answer the question, I would actually place the two buildings in two different contexts. The building we looked at last month was a large, contemporarily designed apartment building. And because of that, I think the staff view was that as long as there were relationships between this building and the adjacent structures on Grand, that was sufficient. We felt the designer was a designer with a strong sense of aesthetic value, and to some extent these are judgment calls. And we felt that even though they weren't using a historical material, they weren't trying to design a building based on a model example. And therefore, there could be some latitude in that design. In this particular case, I think it's a different situation. The staff has worked with the developer to the extent that we thought we could bring something to the board, and we're making our recommendation. I think our goal was to have a building that fit in along the sidewalk, which again is something of a judgment call whether it fits in or not, and felt that we got enough brick going back that it wouldn't be a really deleterious effect on the streetscape. And therefore, we were recommending support of overturning the denial. And it's completely within the purview of the Preservation Board to disagree with our recommendation.
Well, I know that, but is this neighborhood association, are they giving us any latitude to make big compromises like this to their?
I didn't have the direct contact with the neighborhood, so I would defer back to Andy for that question.
We didn't have a specific recommendation. The Compton Heights Neighborhood Association deferred to the Compton Hill Reservoir neighborhood. Their main concerns were the sidewalls, although at the time those were vinyl when they originally saw it. The finish color, which that we have addressed. And the carport design, which really is not visible from the street. And it's not really any different than other carports we've approved in the neighborhood. So this is just the deferral to the other. And this is some community input from the neighborhood, mostly addresses those things. The other thing that they were concerned about was having the two family on a single family residence or a site, but the applicant has gone through zoning to
that's not for
that
this
variance.
board.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, and then they did review it, but unfortunately they reviewed it under the new historic district standards that haven't actually been.
So that's not even applicable here.
Yeah.
So have they stated that the folks who wrote the old standards, are they okay with this design?
There's two separate neighborhood groups. One of them is the one we usually deal with, which is Compton Hill, that they deal with basically with Hawthorne and Longfellow and that area. And then the Compton Hill Reservoir Neighborhood Association is more this area. And I didn't get a clear, they didn't write letters saying, yes, they just sent me basically the comments of the community.
Okay. Are there two different sets of standards for those two areas you just?
No, they're the same
It's all the
standards.
Compton Hill.
Commissioner, just before we proceed, it seems like we're doing a lot here. We're considering the director's denial of the original presentation, and then we're getting a sort of a truncated view of a different presentation that staff is asking us to consider and approve. I wonder if we shouldn't split those two things up and deal with the director's denial and get a preliminary review at a different meeting of what's now proposed. Would you feel better about that?
Well, I would feel, I don't feel I could support this the way it is, just knowing that neighborhood association and their rules.
Although your vote would have to be to uphold the director's denial.
So maybe splitting it up would make sense.
Commissioner Richardson, what are you thinking?
I guess I didn't follow your logic. Maybe if you elaborate,
I'm always uncomfortable at a director's denial with a staff recommendation to pay no attention to it. Usually we hear evidence as to why the director denied it in the first place, and occasionally we hear a reason why we should not. It seemed to me it would have been more logical for them simply to withdraw their denial because the project wasn't in front of them anymore. So if in fact there was this new presentation, this new rendering, these new ideas that could work their way through the neighborhood organizations and the alderwoman, we would have a better idea of community input. Commissioner Vicentainer?
Well, it does seem to me as though we're being asked to overturn a director's denial of a project that really doesn't exist anymore. And I think that's what you're basically saying.
Yeah.
And I would much rather have a recommendation based on what is there now, not what used to be.
Tony?
Let's vote.
We have a whole case to hear if we're going to hear a case.
Mr. Chairman, so we could have, theoretically uphold the director's denial, and then what was presented to us could have been on the first part of our agenda of preliminary reviews.
Yes, it could have.
So it seems like that's
Except-
form over substance, because there is a new proposal, and
Except
staff went over
it is unclear if the neighborhood has seen it.
Right. Let's hear
Quite a
it.
lot of opinions in here, so
Maybe you want time.
kind of a lot to digest.
What does it say?
They don't like the siding on the sides. They recommend, a lot of people talk about stucco, which is a whole other thing, but that's one of the main points.
So it sounds like Commissioner Killeen there. Okay, the agenda item is an appeal of a denial. Let's proceed with that. We have the appellant.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm
Well,
Jason Plew with Gateway Architecture. I was the applicant.
Appellant.
Yeah. Sorry. The reason.
I wish you were the applicant.
Yeah.
We'd hear about your proposal.
Well, I was just going off of the listing on what I had for the agenda. I was listed as the applicant. The reason why we didn't follow up with meetings and the additional drawings that Cultural Resources asked for initially is we were told that it was denied from the get-go because of a zoning issue with splitting the site into two separate single-family. They were concerned that of having a two-family building on a single-family site. We were in the process of getting that appeal through the zoning board, and we wanted to wait until that went through, because if it didn't go through, it would have greatly changed the design and everything. So we just kind of stopped, waited for that procedure to go through, which we got that approval. That's when I met with Andrea and worked through what changes needed to occur to meet the requirements of the local neighborhood and get their approval on what they thought was appropriate for the site. And that's what we've submitted this time. I've just tried to follow the recommendations based on the staff at whatever time and was hoping to get that appeal accepted and then the new drawings approved.
Questions on this? Go ahead.
I'm sure you read the design guidelines,
Yes, I have.
so, I read those things too.
And again, but that's also why I go down and meet with them to discuss what's needed, what's wanted, and work those out directly with them. So if there's something additional needed or that you guys feel needs to be done, I'm here to listen to those
Yes,
and meet those requirements with you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Is there more to your presentation?
No, it was just if you had any questions or anything like that as well. Mhm.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm
me-
Lucy Morgan Vogt.
Is your testimony going to be the truth?
Yes.
Good.
So help me God. I own property at 1903 Virginia. I've been active in the neighborhood and with the association for quite some time. However, currently, my husband and I are living off the property. But when this came on, and I knew there was an opportunity to return to the neighborhood, I was very interested in it. And so we are still greatly considering buying this property, or at least a part of it. I have a townhome at the corner of Virginia and Geyer, and it would be much similar to what I had lived in, but nicer and bigger. I too was concerned about the brick situation. I know that my neighbors were considered and about it. Some of them are very intent on having it exactly the way it should be. Others, maybe not so much. I've only lived there for 17 years. Some have lived there a lot longer. And I appreciate their respect for the integrity of our neighborhood. So I personally just want to say, if I bought this building, the first thing I would do would ask the owner or the developer what it would cost to put brick all the way around the building. Because that would be my preference, and I would be willing to pay for it if it didn't cost an entire other arm and a leg and something like that. My neighborhood, we're all online constantly reading about that. Even though I don't live there, I know all what's going on. And I'm surprised that some of them aren't here, or I've heard no talk online whatsoever about it not being approved. I think they are expecting that because of the changes that were made, that, oh, well, that's a good thing. And so I don't hear anybody screaming that they don't want it. I personally do. I'd like to live back there again. It's the joy of my life, this neighborhood. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Questions? Commissioners, this concludes the testimony. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Got it. You have a motion? No. I don't have a motion, she
No.
said. No, don't make me make this
No, I do
motion.
not.
Okay, Tony, have you got a motion?
Sure.
Let's hear it.
Maybe. See if the commission. I move that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I think Commissioner Colleen spoke to at least one of the issues that I have, that being that the material should be carried around, and it is not. In addition to that, you know, I have some concerns with the design, with the way the fenestration on the front lines up, or its lack of lining up. Yeah. And I think given that it is sort of in a historical vein, that it either be that or it be something else. Right now, from what I can see, there are several different types of details from various styles that are attached that don't quite meet what's going on around it.
Aaron, what are you thinking?
I mean, I think those are good points. I think, you know, it's close to being a model example. If first floor windows lined up with the second floor windows, front and rear elevation, so I think those are good points that.
So, enough reason to uphold the director's denial, not enough reason yet.
Well, there were a lot of comments from residents and emails about the siding on the sides. So I think it's an issue that many people are concerned about. So I think that it's important to digest those, reflect those in the design.
Commissioner Richardson, you're an expert on what can be seen from the street.
Well, okay, so my issue with this is, we're dealing with, Commissioner Colleen mentioned historic model example and things like that, but, I mean, this is an ordinance from 1978. It's 3.5 pages of standards. It's, we heard about zoning, and that's actually because that's in their ordinance, having two-family on one-family, things like that. So it's an odd ordinance. It needs to be updated, obviously, but, the standards here say that it only applies to things that are visible from the street. And so, from my perspective, it seems like this isn't really in our purview, at least one side wouldn't be. It's only the other, the side where the one story is that you could actually see it. So, this is an example where you have bad law that it really needs to be updated if they want to regulate sides of buildings in this district. I also would note, our former director gave us a tutorial on comparable and compatible and the difference between those words. And this is a compatible was the exterior material, it's not comparable. So I think there's more latitude here, and I think this is allowed under their ordinance. I'm saying it's compatible. Compatible type, texture, color. I mean, again, it's not a comparable one. It's and again, on the one side, I don't even think it's really in our purview because it's seen from the street most likely.
I would agree with you on that, but it will be from the other side and therefore within our purview.
Well, I think it would be under purview on both sides. It looks like about 8 feet in there.
And that's quite possible. I can't
If it's a
determine.
30-inch separation, yeah, that's something, but that looks.
Yeah. It looks wider,
according
but I
to-
can't.
I can see it from the street. You got it?
Wide, it goes
I beg your pardon?
So we'll do the whole side. Yeah, we'll do the whole side. If everybody has a problem with that, we'll do the whole side.
Commissioner Vincent,
Brick.
add?
Both sides?
Yeah.
All right.
I still think that it should go back to.
We got nothing to argue.
That's less money, even though it's a big ticket, that's less money than being delayed a whole another month or whatnot.
No, I think there was windows. There was an issue with fenestration. I moved to overturn the.
Overturn the denial and then
No, I moved to
just
uphold
clarify
the.
the motion.
Sorry, I moved to uphold the director's denial.
Right. That's it.
That was it.
We haven't gotten into the design.
I spoke about why.
But it wasn't in your mind. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
No. Can we do one motion and do another motion?
Oh, I suppose you can.
Okay.
Chairman, can I ask a question of staff?
Yes.
So, if the applicant agrees to do brick on full sides, is there anything that doesn't comply of that design with the ordinance then?
That is actually a good question. If they're going to say no, that there's nothing that does not comply, then approving the motion upholding the director's denial, they then walk in the next day and staff approves it. They don't need us at all. Right?
Is that right, staff?
So, let us suppose that this board
But it's in the-
approves the motion, which upholds the director's denial. Tomorrow, applicant now walks in with the plan. Includes 4 sides, 3 sides, 1 billion windows, whatever, but complies with the ordinance. We wouldn't need to see that, is that correct?
If I could, my view is, if the Preservation Board renders a judgment on a project that is unequivocal, then it is the Preservation Board who can only undo that decision on the same project. So if they were to come in the next day with brick on all 4 sides, and you had upheld the director's denial, my view would be it would have to come back to the Preservation Board again for your all's approval.
All new buildings in historic districts have to come before us anyway.
That's the way we've been that's the way this Health Resources and the Preservation Board has been handling things for, I think, decades now, that new construction comes to the board. And if you all deny new construction designs, then my view is it needs to come back to the Preservation Board for the approval of those designs.
Just follow what your instructions were.
I would also say this, if I could, and Ms. Barber, maybe this, I'll defer to you on this. But my view is if this board upheld the director's denial, that they have the ability to do an appeal of that Preservation Board decision back to the Preservation. Well, no, this is their appeal.
To planning
Yeah, this is
commission.
their appeal, it would be to.
Yeah, this is their appeal. So they could submit a new application, but if they did, I would want that to go back to you all for approval, or for consideration.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded. The motion is to uphold the director's denial. Commissioner Wright, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Vincentainer, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
No.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
It's 4 yeses, 1 no. The director's denial is upheld. The next agenda item, 4239 Shenandoah.
Okay, Bob Bettis with staff, swear to tell the truth. Need to enter in ordinances 64689 as modified by 6425. Also the Shaw Historic District Ordinance 59400. Okay, this is an appeal of a denial to retain a modified entryway on Shenandoah in the Shaw Local Historic District. Some quick background. Last year in December 2015, the owners pulled a permit for rehabilitation of the house on the left. At that time, that permit did not include work to the front doorway. The plans just had no notations about what to do for the front doors. We had received a complaint, I believe back in August, that there was work done without permits. So went out and unfortunately saw that the original entryway had been replaced with what you see in front of you right now, single door with flanking side lights with a decorative etched glass in both the door and the side lights. So this is the current condition. Here's the side plan. But this is the original door configuration. So you had a fixed side light, large mullion, and door. The door had been replaced at some point in time. This is a contemporary fan light door, but that's the original configuration. And of course, the door would have matched the height of the original side light. So this is what should have either been replicated or retained, and the door should have been replaced to match the existing. But instead, this was installed instead. The transom, actually, I believe, it's hard to tell because it's Google Earth and the darn thing is too high, you can't see it, but the transom actually is pretty accurate to what was there before. So the Shaw standards require that you maintain these historic features as they were originally. So obviously, the contemporary door, the modern appearance does not replicate the appearance of the original door. So what happened with this is, though, some more background. It was cited, spoke with the owners briefly. They understood the situation, but it was not rectified and was sent to housing court. They can explain more. I have not been part of the housing court procedure, but I do believe the judge had asked them to come back and try to get a variance to retain what they've done. They can explain more about that when they speak. But they applied for a permit recently for the door itself. It was denied, and that's why we're here for that. Again, doesn't comply with the standards. They remove original materials and configuration. So we recommend that the board uphold the director's denial of the application.
Questions? Everything you need?
I believe everything was submitted.
Yes.
Anything else to submit?
Great, thank you. Let's hear from the appellants.
Good evening.
Afternoon.
I'm Alicia Scott and the owner of the home. First and foremost, when we apply.
First and foremost, is your testimony going to be the truth?
Yes, sir.
And your address for the record?
4239 Shenandoah.
Okay.
When we apply for the permit, we apply for an exterior and interior permit. It covers everything from the porch to the carport. So being a new homeowner, we did not know that the door was not included because the porch is in our drawings. So when our architect did all the drawings, the porch was included, the door was included, so we thought that changing the door was okay. So we were not trying to not be within compliance with the ordinance. Since then, when we received the door, it was not the actual door that we purchased. We went back to where we purchased the door because they also did the windows and explained to us when we purchased the windows, everything had to be within compliance with the historical neighborhood. So they did the windows and they did the door. Well, when I got a call when I was at work, found out that it was the incorrect door, found out that the entire entryway had been altered And that's why we're here. Since then, we've spoke with Bob Bettis, where we purchased the door.
What did you say when you heard that?
We were like, oh my God, like, okay. The door that we purchased, it was not a full panel glass. It was actually a half panel glass. And they were supposed to, the transom at the top was not supposed to be clear. It was supposed to be frosted. But they said it would be more costly to alter the door. We can make changes to the glass or something like that, but it would cost a lot to go back to what the original door was. So we've been to the housing court. The judge and the prosecutor told us to work with Bob Bettis and to see what we can come up with to make some alterations, maybe to the glass or whatever we need to do to try to come within compliance with, since we already have the door installed.
And what solution do you think you've come to with him?
We have not discussed anything. I explained before
we
what it would
didn't
take to
discuss
make the entryway compliant. I mean, we know what it looked like before. I mean, I've spoken with the owner, said there's really, the only option to make it compliant again is to restore the original configuration. And they said that was not feasible.
Right.
So, expand on the idea that it is not feasible. What makes it not feasible?
Well, after speaking with where we purchased the door from, the cost to change it, and not really understanding the terminology, but it would not be something with, I'm not really for sure, you know, how he spoke with when he spoke with Bob Bettis, but I guess changing the frame of making it go back smaller. So he suggested maybe frosting the door or suggesting changing something to the glass.
Anybody else but the homeowners about the project. I mean, none of that would be compliant. You can't frost glass in a historic district anyway. So the issue again comes down to is we can only make compliant by returning it back to the, the original configuration. That's been made abundantly clear to the applicant.
And let's stick with cost for a second.
Right.
What kind of numbers are we talking about?
He said it would cost $7,000 to change the door back to the original configuration.
You usually speak up at this point.
It would not.
It would not?
No. I guess my question is, so the door that you currently have is not the door that
We originally ordered. No.
that would be my basis to returning this. Yeah. But it would not cost $7,000. An entirely new door, double door there with one fixed leaf would not even half that.
Door go in the dumpster.
Yes, I was at work and they had took all the glass and everything by the time I had gotten home.
Presentation?
No, sir.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak for you?
No, sir.
Aaron, questions? No. David, questions? Any David?
Any David.
Good. Thank you very much. Commissioners, that concludes the testimony on this matter. Tony, a motion?
I recommend that the Preservation Board uphold the denial as the door and side lights do not comply with the Shaw Historic District standards.
Motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Tony? How awful is their situation?
Unfortunate, since the inappropriate door was delivered, I would be pushing back on the the company to, one, come get this door, and then two, although the door that they would probably, what they were putting in the opening would not comply either, but I would press that issue first and then talk about the replacement of it. But I can tell you that I know what $7,000 doors look like because I have some, and in a standard opening, it's not even half that. It's not even close.
Commissioner Killeen, you've opened and closed a lot of doors.
Yes, sir. Hung some signs too.
$7,000?
You could certainly pay that much, but you wouldn't have to. Yeah, there are sources out there in the city, and you could probably find that historic door at one of the salvage yards. Pretty cheap.
Yeah.
You've got lots of doors.
Actually,
$7,000, you think?
No. No.
Okay. Commissioners, there's a motion on the floor. It's been made and seconded. I'm going to call a roll. Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no? Yes. Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Byzantiner, do you vote yes or no? Yes. Commissioner Wright, do you vote yes or no?
yes.
And Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
The Preservation Board has voted to uphold the denial, and sidelights do not comply with the Shaw Historic District standards. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, go. 2 to 94 South Kings Highway Boulevard.
I'm Andre Gagan. I swear to tell the truth. I need to introduce into the record ordinance 64689 as amended by 64925, the enabling ordinance, and the Preservation Review District ordinance 64832, as well as the agenda and the PowerPoint. 1092 to 94 South Kings Highway. This is the building. It's 4-family. As you see, it's been boarded up. Just going through the ordinance, redevelopment plan is not applicable. Is not one at this time. As architectural quality, at the time the Forest Park Southeast was listed in the National Register, this building was identified as contributing property constructed circa 1902 and is therefore considered to be a merit building. It is an early 20th century multi-flat building with paired front entries. It features a false mansard and a cornice lined with consoles above a wide frieze board. The original front porch has been removed, and the original Jefferson doors have been infilled to windows. The multifamily building is similar to other buildings along the east side of South Kings Highway Boulevard and is representative of dwellings erected in the working and middle-class residential neighborhood and historic district. Or it is a merit building as it is contributing to the district. The building has, here's the location. It's at the corner of South Kings Highway in Oakland. This is the rear of the building. When the application was first made, well, actually, it's kind of a few minutes after the application was first made, and then the condition of the rear now. As you can see, there has been some additional collapse at the top of the building since that time. This is the south elevation, which faces Oakland. and looking down the north side of the building. Close-up of the damage to the roof facade. And this is a aerial view. As you can see, there is damage to the roof. Apparently there was a fire at this location at one time, which caused damage to the joists, and is letting some water into the building. This is looking north from the site, along Kings Highway, and south across Oakland. This is the existing block face between Arco and Oakland. The building we're talking about is the one farthest to the right. As you can see, most of them are boarded. This is looking north from the site towards BJC, and looking southwest across, there's occupied bungalows mostly. This is the context that is east on Oakland, behind the building on the one side. Oops. The building, as I said, the building has sustained some damage, including the area collapse and the roof damage by the fire. There are some other areas that show deterioration from lack of maintenance. The neighborhood affecting use potential, the block front on the east side of South Kings Highway between Arco and Oakland Avenues is mainly intact, with 6 two-story, 2 and 4 family flat buildings. The current level of repair and maintenance ranges from good to poor, and only one building on the block front is occupied. The blocks to the north and south are occupied, although the block fronts are less intact. And the block face west on the west side is intact with single-family residences. That block face is well maintained and is fully occupied. Property use potential, the property is similar in size to some of the other occupied properties in the immediate vicinity in the historic district, many of which are converted to family residences. There is the availability of state and federal historic tax credits to repair the damage and complete other needed work suggests that the reuse potential is fair to good. Both the residential and commercial properties in the Forest Park Southeast Historic District are being rehabilitated, and the neighborhood is experiencing revitalization. As far as economic hardship, the applicant has stated the property is in condition that is not economically feasible to rehabilitate it. They have now submitted some documentation. I will do that to you now. Including a limited condition assessment and a bid for what looks like a complete rehabilitation by Catastrophe Cleaning and Restoration Company. And then also, some numbers on the rehab and the feasibility with the rents they would think they would get from it.
Is there a document there outlining the cost of stabilizing it?
No, there's not one that just is for stabilization that I could see. They might be able to address that further. As far as urban design, the presence of the flats building at 1092 to 94 South King Highway is important to maintain the historic density and rhythm of residences on the east side of South Kings Highway, as well as to hold the corner at South Kings Highway and Oakland Avenue. The brick flat anchors the south end of the block and on the east side of the South Kings Highway and furthers the integrity, balance, and density of that block front. And just in summary, 1092 to 94 South Kings Highway is a contributing resource to the National Register District. and is located in a preservation review district, and is a merit building under the definition of the ordinances. The building appears to be in sound condition under the ordinance, although it exhibits damage at the roof and rear wall and other consequences of deferred maintenance and repair. The use or conversion of the building to two-family residence and the repair of the damage could make use of historic state and federal tax credits, therefore reduce potential of property warrants expiration. And location of the building on the block front with high degree of integrity and a strong sense of urban design makes this building an important element at the south end of the block front. As of now, the owner is not proposing any new construction at this location. And the ordinance 64689 states that demolition of merit or qualifying structures shall not be approved except in unusual circumstances. No unusual such circumstances are present, and therefore the requirements for approval of the demolition are not met. The Cultural Resources Office recommends that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial of the demolition application for 1092 to 94 South Kings Highway. Questions? Oh, and I also have some letters to submit. I have a letter from Alderman Rhodey in opposition to the demolition, as well as emails from two neighborhood residents in opposition.
Questions for staff? I always forget. What's the definition of sound under the ordinance?
It will stand for 6 months.
Okay. Mr. Carmody, you may arrange your presentation and your speakers any way that you want, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Have fun.
Ready? Mr. Chairman and members of the board, first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Don Carmody, Counsel for Jury Development in connection with this. And I would also like to introduce Mr. Vince Miller, who is the Vice President of Jury, John Knobloch, who is the Manager of Operations, and David Wilson, who's the Associate Counsel for Jury. First of all...
Everyone's testimony going to be the truth?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
First of all, I would like to, just for a moment, to apologize that it's taken some time for us to get here. One of the unfortunate things happened when we have experts involved. We had one fine gentleman who is an engineer, but unfortunately he took sick, and we haven't been able to find him. And as a result of that, we had to go the process again with another individual. And we did go through that, and you have his report, Tim Unger. Anyway, I'd like to just for a moment, tell you that, and I know that you know this, the project description is regarding our appeal with respect to demolishing a two-story, four-family brick building. You see the picture up there at 1092-94. We understand and appreciate the fact that this is a Forest Park Southeast National Register District, and we also understand that it's maintained by the Cultural Resources, that this is a merit building, which I'll address in a moment. But anyway, the owner applicant is Drury Development. And this property was purchased by Drury in 2002 from KH Ventures. The seller required that all the buildings that it had go with this purchase, and as a result of the tract, and you will see the tract from Mr. Miller later, but as a result of that, we had to take these buildings, which are there, and one of which is the subject of this. It was constructed in 1902, and as we are concerned and what we know, it's been vacant since, I guess, maybe at least a decade. As Andrea said, it's a merit building, and that is defined in the ordinance as an existing or potential city or national historic district or having a unique architectural style. So for starters, I'd like to say that I don't know that this is really a unique architectural style. It appears, at least from our perspective, that it is as a typical four-family flat commonly built in the city about that time. Now, it is our position that in view of the current condition, the pictures you have already seen, the property has a very negative impact on the area, and even more so, a negative impact on those residences on the east of the building. Further, it is clear in view of those traveling on Kings Highway, which is now a major artery to the north and south. It's obviously seen. I mean, people go by this and see this building collapsing, and it's not, in our opinion, something that ought to be a few blocks from a nationally known Forest Park and a renowned Barnes Jewish Hospital. So we look at it from the aspect of, if it does have merit, it has merit in a negative sense, not merit in a positive sense. And unfortunately, I think you could see from Andrea's pictures that this, the condition of this building, it's deteriorating. The picture was astounding from 216 to 217, how much collapse there is. And as far as we are concerned, we will point out to you that there is not a reasonable or responsible way to either repair or restore. Now, we have some more pictures. Just if you would go through those, would you, Angie? This is the first one. This is the southeast corner of the property. Now, there's a very nice tree up there, as you can tell, the right, growing out of the building. And that whole side is collapsing. This is a picture of the decayed main floor framing area. The next picture is the decaying second floor framing area. This is an opening in the main floor framing from fire. Now, the problem with this being wide open is that it's subject to all the moisture. In other words, the moisture's coming down all the time in this building, and it deteriorates all the time as a result of that. Okay, next picture, please. Then the post base at the basement floor. You can just tell from around there the condition of that post as further as to the basement also. Next picture is the roof overall, and then we'll get you a picture. The next one is a picture of the opening in the roof from the underside. You can see that water will come pouring in all the time. Okay, so even to take you back a little bit further now, go back to 2012, and there was a notice of condemnation from the city of St. Louis. In that notice of condemnation, we've given everyone should have a copy of that notice, but I know that you all would have it anyway. But in any event, the upshot of it is the notice indicates that the porches are collapsed, the windows are defective or missing in all parts of the place, electric is inoperable, the east walls are cracked, the north, south, and east-west roof is fire damaged, and the interior structure members are fire damaged. Now, what has happened as a result of this is that the property has continued to deteriorate. It is physically impractical to restore it and financially unreasonable to renovate it. So if I may, I hope you all have the opinion of Mr. Unger, who was engaged by us with SSE Structural Engineers. Mr. Unger is a professional engineer, and he provided us his opinions May 16th, 2016. If I may, I'd just like to take you through some of them. 4.1, the roof framing. He states in his opinion that the wood roof joists and wood plank decking are damaged by fire and moisture. He then goes on to say, missing and detached roof membrane has allowed the water into the building from above. Then on 4.2, he states that the wood floor joists and the wood plank decking are fire damaged. On the floor framing at the main floor, he states that the The wood floor joist and wood plank decking are fire damaged at this level in areas near the fire. And then he says at the bottom that the masonry wall at the rear of the building is collapsed at all levels. On 5.1, the roof and floor framing, he states that the roof and floor framing are both damaged and water damaged. A significant portion of the roof is open to the weather, and with the compromised roofing membrane, we recommend all of the roof framing be replaced. And then we get into more of the summary type of opinions that he has. And the first one is, given the current deteriorated condition of the framing, the building is not sound, nor can it be relied on to support live and dead loads as specified by locally adopted building code. He then defines what he means by sound. He says the word sound refers to the term as defined in the St. Louis Ordinance 64689, meaning that visible portions of the exterior walls and roof appear capable of continuing to support their current load for 6 months. That's sound. He's saying this is not sound. In other words, they're not capable. He says in the bottom, he says, in our opinion, the structure is not sound and should be demolished to eliminate the risk of an uncontrolled collapse and other dangers a collapse would present to the public and to private property. Restoration or preservation of the structural components does not appear feasible due to the extent of damage, extent of additional hidden damage, and the effort necessary to effectively gut the interior finishes to expose the entire structure for evaluation of currently concealed deterioration. So we now have the engineer that says this is not a sound building, it is collapsing and needs to be demolished. So knowing that we have this type of deterioration, we thought that it best to make sure that we engaged some company that would be a specialist in these type of catastrophic type restoration efforts. So the company engaged Catastrophe Cleaning and Restoration, commonly known as CATCO. And that is a prominent and reputable business specializing in this type of cleaning and restoration to analyze the property and building as it was to prepare a bid for restoration. CATCO inspected most recently the property in April of 2017 and issued its report on April 14th of 2017. Now, I would like you all to take a look at what CATCO, this expert, is saying about restoration. First of all, due to the extensive structural damage, CATCO will assume no responsibility for any additional structural damage or collapse once the work begins. And that is, if we go in to restore this building, the walls fall, anything falls, anybody gets hurt, we're assuming no responsibility for it. That's how badly it's damaged. The next thing they say is a full set of architectural plans with a detailed engineering report was necessary before we commence. Then they say, recommend demolishing the structure versus reconstruction. And then the last thing they say, to me, which is the most compelling, they say, in view of the complete deterioration of this structure, should in all instances be demolished. And if the structure is rehab, we would not warrant the condition or integrity of the final structure. They're not even going to warrant it if after they do it. And what is the inference? The inference is that the property cannot be made safe even if they would fully restore it by someone that specializes in catastrophic restorations. Well, the problem with that is, and I'll let the city councilor make up her mind also, but the problem with that is we, the owners, and the city now know that we have an expert engineer that says it's not sound and not safe. Now we have also a contractor saying virtually the same thing. So we are on notice that this building is dangerous and it's hazardous. Now, the question becomes, okay, well, let's assume that we go ahead and we try to rehabilitate it. We have the exact same problem then, because if we rehabilitate it, what this contractor is saying, we're not going to warrant the integrity or condition of that building even after we go ahead and do it. So where does that place us? Where does that place us? That places us that we would have to notify anybody that would try to come and become a tenant. We would have to tell them that we can't warrant that this property is safe, we can't warrant its condition, and we can't warrant its integrity. If not, we'd probably get a lawsuit against us if somebody got hurt for fraudulently concealing that statement. On the other hand, let us assume we tell somebody that. Then I'd like you all to tell us, what type of residence do you think we're going to have that somebody's going to come in there and say, look, I want to rent your place knowing it's not warranted for condition at all and not warranted for integrity. So we're kind of in a situation where if we're not gaining anything by actually going ahead and even considering trying to do it. But that is not a good consideration, Mr. Knobloch, who I will now turn this over to. Mr. Knobloch is the manager of operations, has done a considerable amount of research on the numbers and figures it would be and what we would have to do. I would just jump back in for a few minutes afterwards. I have a final thought. But thank you very much.
Mr. Commissioner, thank you very much. As you have in front of you, as well as the estimated ROI worksheet going over our numbers. Now, our calculations that we put together were based on a structurally sound building. Now, since CATCO has come back and said they cannot warrant it, these are, as Don pointed out, a little bit askew. Rent assumption on the spreadsheet or prior to CATCO's proposal, and they do not warrant the condition integrity of the final structure. So it puts us at a deficit in trying to disclose this to prospective tenants and still trying to get that rental income of $800 per month. It's going to be below that. Rent assumptions are based upon fair market for the similar number of bedrooms, bathrooms, layout, and surrounding area, and not also the proximity of your front door being so close to Kings Highway as well. So we base that on a surrounding area number, not just on our specific property as well. Is based upon the company's history, our company's history of over 20 years experience in residential rentals. So we base this on an annual basis, we are 75% occupied in all of our properties. So as we go down the list here, we look at $800 per month per unit is our rental income. We have a combined monthly rental income and a total combined yearly rent, then multiplied by our 75% occupancy rate. That's what we annually see on our basis of our properties. If we go into the first estimated ROI calculation, we have our estimated rehab cost from CATCO. That includes a 15% contingency. That was what CATCO is recommending for a project like this. A lot of unknowns here. We do not know what you're going to get into until you open this property up. Our combined annual rent, occupancy level of 75%. That equals $28,800 a year. Less our annual real estate taxes. Our taxes are based upon current tax rates in this area. Less our estimated annual rental expenses. Things are like estimated repairs, maintenance, utilities, insurance, lawn maintenance, etc. Back that out of your financial numbers here. You have an estimated annual net income of $17,300. Divide that rehab costs by your annual net income, and you get a return on investment in years of 43, just over 43 years, if you did the project just by itself. Now, if you factor in your tax credits, as alluded to, you can get up to 45% of that. Same calculations come across here. You have your 45% for your tax credits, same real estate taxes, or same annual expenses. We have an estimated annual net income of $17,300 again. Now our ROI is a 23, just over 23 year expense for our return on investment. If you would factor in an additional way to look at this, estimated ROI tax credits with tax abatement. So if we get the tax credits and we get tax abatement on top of this, same calculations, same numbers, get down here to just under 20 years on return on investment, which is a very, very long time to try to recoup a $753,000 expense. Yeah, that's it for me as far as the financial numbers, is how we broke them out as far as rent versus our return on the investment. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Questions?
Yeah, yes, I have a question.
Okay.
So in looking up the square footage of this building, it's 3,774 square feet. You've got a rehab cost with 15% contingency of right at $754K. That comes out to $200 a square foot to rehab. How did you compile that number?
This came straight from Catco. When
So-
Catco took a look at the structural report and viewed the property, toured the property, they put together a detailed estimate of what a full rehab cost would be.
So, okay, so do you understand that Catco is, how do I describe? Catco is, Catco is a company that handles remediation primarily, and that does include mold, fire. They are not a general contractor.
They do complete restoration work.
So they restoration work, but yeah, but okay. $200 a square foot is quite a bit for a rehab.
Correct. And the structure, as you see here, is in very, very poor condition.
And with that, you understand that $200 a square foot is more than double what most rehabs cost with sort of similar damage.
Similar damage to this property?
Yes, sir.
Well, I just have to have your structural engineer speak with our structural engineer on the property you're speaking of. But this property is, you heard from our report from our structural engineer, it is in very serious disarray. And to get a company to come in to do a complete restoration job, that was our task to look at to do. Come in and do the work to completely restore this property. That is what they did, a detailed analysis, detailed report of this property.
Okay.
I do not know the extent of which they've done in that specific area.
Did you reach out to any other contractors to, get a general bid on rehabbing this project?
We have not gone out to bid to multiple companies. We went to Catco as a complete catastrophe restoration company.
Right. I think the issue is that it's a catastrophe company after a fire or a flood or something like that. But as opposed to someone who's going to rehab a building, which there's been a lot of rehab done in the Grove neighborhood in Forest Park Southeast by both big and small developers and contractors. And so you haven't reached out to any of the folks who've done any work in the Grove or Forest Park Southeast?
No, and Catco does also do complete restoration, not just your catastrophe cleaning with the flood or fire. They are the capability of doing a general contractor type of work. So they are capable of doing that work.
The issue that I have is just looking at the numbers. I don't know if you looked at those closely, but just picking out three numbers. A doorbell was $159. Well, I think you can get a doorbell probably cheaper at the Home Depot down on Kings Highway for a rehab project. And you don't need the $159 per unit doorbell, wouldn't you agree?
Well, again, we put this as one complete package together to do everything under one scope. So, we can go through and try to look at items such as that, but, obviously the big ticket items here are roofing, structural members that are the serious points of this project.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in there though. Again, so it seems like Capco was doing it from a catastrophe kind of viewpoint. Because again, I just picked out their $524 toilets and their $795
there insurance?
Pardon me?
Was there insurance?
Insurance on this property?
Huh?
We don't have that number. No. Yeah, this was before our ownership of the property, the fire damage to the property.
Okay. And why did you buy it?
It was part of a larger purchase of properties in this area.
Okay.
That's based on our annual, what we typically run in our annual occupancy levels of our rental properties. So we've got several rental properties throughout this area, and as we go across, if we analyze that throughout the year, we have about a 75% occupied rate. Potentially could be, but also you have a lot of move in, move out. So there's a lot of turnover in that area as well. We've got several other properties in the area, and we do have a lot of turnaround in that property as well. So we still run in that 75% occupied rate in that area.
So you have rental property in the Grove that is at 75%?
Yes. Questions?
Proceed, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Board.
Thank you, John.
Couple thoughts. Final thoughts. For me, but then Mr. Miller, I'd ask him to come up. I understand your questions, David, but I think that once we tell people that this is a project that is not warranted for condition or integrity, I don't think you're going to get 75%, nor do I think you're going to get that type of rent. The type of rent that I think Mr. Knobloch was talking about was rentals in the area, comparables. But I think that once you tell somebody that this is that big of that serious of a condition, and that was the reason why CATCO was engaged. Anthony, that was the reason why they were engaged, because we didn't consider this to be a garden variety rehab project. This was a real catastrophe. And they can speak to it better than me. But let me go back to what Andrea was talking about, and I mentioned it, that the property is a merit building. And I understand that. I don't think I think it's because of the area that it's in. I accept that. But I think that it is also truly a negative image for the surrounding area that's being rebuilt. Right, to the east of it, to the south and to the north, it's all rebuilt across the street. This is just a very negative image, not only for the area, but also for the city of St. Louis. The statement that the building appears to be sound. We have two experts saying that the building is not sound and needs to be demolished. That's what the experts are saying. The rehabilitation is warranted. You've heard from John, who tells you that as far as he's concerned, I'm using all the tax credits I can, I'm using what I can do, but at the end of the day, the ROI does not come out reasonably. In other words, I don't think the concept is that the jury development needs to lose money on it, particularly one that at the end of the day, it's not going to have a warranty. Now, the question is, there's no evidence of economic hardship, I think Andrea repeated. Well, we're saying that there will be if we have to have it a rehab that will, but I don't think that's ever going to happen as a practical matter. The expense is not appropriate. All right, the location is on a block front. Yes, it is. It's on a block front, but it's highly visible, and it's hard to believe that we would have a collapsing building saying that that's an important block for the whole entire area. I think that it's a negative block. Now, the last one is there are no unusual circumstances exist for the demolition. We think that's untrue. The building is collapsing. Even from 2016 to 2017, the pictures up on that wall clearly indicate that it is collapsing at a rather rapid pace. And that we couldn't, even if we wanted to lose money, we're not going to be able to have a warranty to make this thing economically feasible. Those are unusual circumstances. I think you know that. Okay? And at this time, I would thank you And I would also like to introduce Mr. Vince Miller, who is the Vice President of Jury, that will give you some more background information. Thank you all very much.
Mr. Chairman and committee, thank you. As Don said, I'm Vice President of Jury Development, been with the family for 28 years. We like buildings that have good bones to them, and our problem is we don't feel this building has good bone structure to it. Over the last 30 years, we have rehabbed numerous structures in the market and around the country. In St. Louis alone, we've done the International Fur Exchange, the Union Market, the YMCA Railroad Hotel on the west side of Union Station, Merchants Laclede Building. So we do take pride in significant historical structures that have good, solid members to work with. And it's our feeling that this structure lacks that. And that's why we've applied for the demolition permit.
I got a question. So you own the building since 2012?
Correct.
And Drury bought it because it was part and parcel of other parcels you wanted?
We wanted to buy some other parcels, and the seller had a portfolio that we had to take all the parcels as a package. We have not.
Was there a reason why not?
Not that I'm aware of, no. The Drurys don't sell a lot of real estate once they buy it, unfortunately.
How much do you estimate in dollars have you put into the building since you acquired it in 2012?
I don't know that number off the top of my head, I really don't.
2014.
I'm sorry, we acquired the building in 2014. We acquired the building in 2014, that package. So we know that the condemnation notice was to the previous owner. So that had been in existence when we got this as part of that larger package of parcels.
If I may ask, so if you are granted approval to demolish this building, what will take its place?
It
Any
will
plans
be
for that
left in as a grass lot. I mean, we had offered to the neighborhood to rent the property to the neighborhood if they wanted to do a community garden or something. But they were not supportive of our goal to demolish the building.
Thank you.
I guess I do have a question. You've mentioned larger rehab projects. Have you done smaller single-family, two-family, four-family renovations?
Not in the city of St. Louis. We have some rental properties around the airport in St. Anne and Edmondson that are not as old and historic, but that we've renovated 50 and 60-year-old structures. But nothing in this condition, nothing to this level of deterioration.
Are you a St. Louis City resident?
I am not.
Have you gone and seen renovations where the rear walls have collapsed, the roofs have collapsed, but those properties are still renovated?
I do not have personal experience with that, no.
Okay.
Mr. Carmody, anything else?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure that we have all the exhibits. We have the photos. Just give them to Adonna, is that what you want me to do? Okay.
Yes, please. She's got a sticker.
We got photos, the notice of condemnation, the Unger report, the Catco report, and John Knobloch's figures. I want to make sure that you all have those, okay?
Do you have an estimate for what it would cost to stabilize the building?
No. We don't know what it costs to stabilize the building. It's deteriorated to such a fact that I don't know how you can do it. Maybe you could put a awning over it, but that would be about the only thing. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And I want you to understand, just from the questions here, Catco was selected because of its expertise in this type of a building. And it was felt by this company that that would be the best party to be able to do that. We can't really respond to the fact that, well, what happens if it can be done for $25 a foot? All we can go on is what we thought were the best people to be able to do this, and that's how these people were chosen. You may be able to get somebody in there for $75, but that's not going to be what it needs because they won't even warrant it at the price that they have it at. Anthony, you want to ask me something?
Yeah, so I have a design build development company, and I would tell you that I have taken on projects very similar to this, and with a rehab, I would offer on a full rehab a 6-month warranty. Secondly, I am licensed and insured. I can also tell you that $200 a square foot is well beyond the cost to rehab one of these properties.
And I understand that's your feeling, but I think that once, maybe you can do it, but Catco is saying that they wouldn't do it, which to me is an indicator. And you're going to have with that type of a question, these people have to be notified there is not a warranty of the condition. But thank you. I understand your point, but I can just tell you.
That's you do understand that
I
that's
do
Catco's
know exactly what you're saying, but I can tell you that
they
Drury.
would not warranty, but that does not mean that another contractor, builder would not warranty this project.
And I understand that.
Okay.
And present company excluded, then you have to be careful with whether that warranty's any good. Right?
Yeah,
Thank you all very, very much. We got all that in. Thank you.
Commissioners, that concludes the testimony. Let's see, I think it concludes the testimony in this matter. Let me just check and make sure. That does. That concludes the testimony in this matter. Commissioner Byzantino, have you got a motion down there?
Yes, I'd like to move that the board uphold the director's denial of demolition on the application for 1092 through 94 South Kings Highway, and recommend that appropriate steps being taken to stabilize and preserve the building.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Comments? Commissioner Byzantino, you're an engineer.
The engineering report indicates there are a lot of structural issues on soundness, but it doesn't specifically say that it meets our criteria that we have to follow on soundness. I've done a couple buildings that were worse shaped than this myself in the past, so it is possible to feasibly rehab them.
Now, just to make sure I understand your testimony, are you saying that you made buildings this bad?
No, I took buildings that were this bad and rehabbed them.
Okay, just checking.
And Commissioner Vicentainer, at what price point per square foot were those?
Figure that out, but they were considerably below $200.
Considerably, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have
Yeah.
a comment. So I want to commend Mr. Carmody on the thoroughness of his presentation, and I think he brought up some good points. However, I'm not sure which way this vote's going to go, but I think it's just good for the jury folks to know that when we allow buildings to be torn down in historic districts, there has to be something that replaces it other than a grassy lot. And that's sort of a precedent, sort of an unwritten rule that we've got up here. There was a project that just came before our board in the Benton Park Historic District just last month, where a woman left here crying because she had a building in much worse shape than yours and we wouldn't let her take it down. So it's just when we let these old gems go, I know you think you testified that you think it's a normal building, but they're not building them like that anymore. Something has to replace it. So that's, just wanted that to be out there so you know. I think you did a good job. So.
I would echo that. I agree that it's not necessarily architecturally significant, but to take it down, I think would expose that whole street behind it. And as a building owner in the Forest Park Southeast neighborhood, I lived in a four-family that was rehabbed, that was in very poor condition, and it was got renovated for significantly less than $200 a square foot, and it's been thriving. We can't rent the apartments fast enough. So I appreciate your proposal, but again, to replace it with a grassy lot, we just, that's something that we don't do.
Well, I think that goes to the first criteria in the demolition review ordinance, which is, do you have a redevelopment plan? And so this would be a lot easier if you had a redevelopment plan for that site under criterion A that said, hey, you're going to replace this with a new apartment building or a new hotel or something like that. But we don't have that before us today. So, I mean, that makes it more difficult. And the architectural quality, again, that's a broad definition, and I think Mr. Carmody admitted that it was a contributing building to the historic district. I looked it up online here, and it is listed in the National Register of Nomination as a contributing building, so that it meets the architectural quality. And we're not supposed to allow those type of buildings to be demolished except in unusual circumstances, which I don't think is just the condition of the building. I think it's something more. The condition is the only one. Again, I read I'm not an engineer like Mr. Byzantiner, but I think he did. The engineer did use the definition of sound, but the criteria is that we're to approve demolitions if it's obviously not sound. And we have some differing opinions here. We have staff looking at the exterior and saying it's sound, and an engineer saying maybe parts of it aren't sound. And then the rest of the criteria, again, it doesn't meet it. Again, this is a neighborhood effect and reuse potential. There's a lot of reuse potential over here, and that's why I asked the question about, have you listed it? Have you put it up for sale since you owned it in 2014? I have an associate who's tried to buy a house just down the street on Oakland a couple times now, and he always gets beat out. So there are two family homes being rehabbed into single-family homes, and they're going, pretty quick, selling pretty quick. And then with respect to urban design, I think one of the other commissioners hit upon this, that, this is an existing block face, and we'd be leaving, it'd be a missing tooth from that block face. So, I guess I'd encourage you to put it up for sale and see if you have any takers, if it's not part of the plans that you have for that larger site in the future. And, maybe you're going to have to put a few dollars into it to stabilize it, but I think that you'd find somebody who would be interested in rehabbing that building, because there's a lot of rehab activity going on just around the corner.
Anybody else? Okay, commissioners, there's a motion on the floor. It's been made and seconded. I'll call a roll. Commissioner Byzantiner, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright, do you vote yes or no? Yes. Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
That is 5 yeses. The motion carries. Commissioners, as far as I can tell, this concludes our business on this agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Hearing no objection, we stand adjourned. Thank you, commissioners.